Hey, Renee.
Hi, Annette.
Today, I want to talk about what has been stolen from those who have been sexually abused. And
Mm,
the reason why I bring it up is because a lot of times the things that were stolen from people like you and I, actually, people can see later in life that
right.
it's missing and or we act a certain way. And so I think it's worth us talking about so people could
Okay.
understand this a little bit better, especially sometimes our blind spots. So I'm not sure what you're going to say today, what was stolen from you, but we'll go through a little list that I made. And I know you got a couple of things. All I told you to do today was bring what you believe you felt was stolen from you. So
Yes.
why don't you go ahead and start with one?
You want to hear it? Okay.
Not really, but
Actually, I made a good list, but it's funny because typically I'm not told what we're going to be talking about.
I know.
This one, I got a little sneak peek, and immediately I came up with two. And then as I was just resting last night, falling asleep, I was like, whoa, there's a lot more.
There's a lot more.
So the big one that I wrote down was the relaxing ability is stolen, and the inability to exhale. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's where I am today, but that was
Yes.
huge,
Peace.
huge. Yeah.
Peace. Yeah.
The ability to relax and just be still. Yeah. And to feel peace in your body, in your brain, in your environment. Because when you are going through abuse, it's like you not only have your five senses, almost said six senses, you got all your senses, but you have this extra alertness always going on, especially if it's a repeat thing as well. But
Right.
after even a one time being abused, you're just a lot more vigilant about your environment and everything around you, that it is hard to relax. It's hard to rest. So
I agree.
that's the first one I have.
I
And
have
that steals, and
go
that
ahead.
steals the ability to even breathe and do the exhale. So I remember the first exhale off of it was when I finally told at the police
Mm,
department. That was my first exhale I recognized in my life. Like I
wow.
could kind of now start letting down this guard and this alertness all the time. Okay, there's my answer. How about you?
My first one I put down was I didn't realize it at the time, but it stole my childhood.
Yep.
Like you, it started when you were young. And so because of that, it stole my childhood
Mm,
and everything that it encompassed around there. I didn't realize everybody else didn't have this happening in their homes. But when you grow up and you realize the truth of it all, it changes things. And then you
yeah.
realize why you were this way instead of these other ways that people talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. So things that I just would add to that, things that a normal childhood that a girl would experience, we may not have experienced,
Right.
delights and gifts, or delights in time with that family member, or yeah, holidays were not, so many things were not what we would call normal childhood.
But we thought they were normal.
Yeah. And it forced us to grow up really fast because of the position that we were forced to play.
Yes.
We didn't get to be a child. Hmm.
All right. What's your second one?
Second one, my self-value was stolen. The
Yes. I put
ability to,
that on my list too. Being
did you?
valuable. Yes, it's huge.
Right. And I added to that the ability to see myself as worthy, as valuable, as revered, or even seen.
Yes.
I remember even in junior high, there was like this play, and they were singing this song on the outside looking in. I can't remember all the words, but it was like, that's me. I always felt like I was on the outside, never seen, always looking in on everybody else's good life, you know, and that they were valued and they understood their value, but I just felt lost. I didn't have a place to fit, and I didn't know. Obviously, as an adult, figured it out what that was called. But so why did you put it down?
Just when I was getting older and realized it didn't happen to others, I figured it's because I wasn't as valued as highly.
Mm, mm,
So that made me less. It only confirmed
mm.
those voices that I heard in my head that were negative towards me. So
Wow.
my
Wow.
next one, I put innocence. It took away my childhood innocence. And of course, I wouldn't realize that until later on, till I, was able to have my own children and see the beauty in it.
Mm, yeah.
But I couldn't see it then. Now, there were hints of it, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
in my childhood, but I didn't grasp it.
Yeah.
Some things you can't grasp until later,
You
because
don't
I
realize,
certainly didn't have the maturity for it.
right? You don't know. You don't know what you're missing sometimes.
Absolutely.
And innocence is one of those things that sometimes we don't know we were missing until we look back. And when you say that word innocence, the picture that comes to my head is a little girl twirling in a white dress
Mm.
and just free. Actually brings tears to my eyes
Yeah.
just think about that. That it sucks. It sucks that it was stolen, that we should have just been able to play with frogs and play with dirt and have bows in our hair and wear a dress without somebody taking advantage of the fact that we were in a dress, taking advantage of the things that were delightful to us and fun for us. It should have been a carefree childhood.
Yeah.
And that is part of that innocence for me.
Being lost. Yeah.
Yeah. And being lost in that fun and simpleness, if you will. But instead we look back and there was work. There was so much around it. Just trying to survive. There was no innocence in that survival.
No.
We were made to like be adults fending for ourselves, trying to survive in a very ugly world that we were part of. So,
Agree.
booyah Satan.
Sanity. It made me always
Mm.
question my sanity.
That's a
And
big one.
that carried on into my adult life,
Mm.
where I would know the answers to things. I would feel confident, and I worked hard to make sure I knew certain things. But because I wasn't believed for so long, and people were saying I was crazy, it was making me accept that I was
Mm.
crazy in some way, that my sanity was very questionable. And that was tough. I remember just finally being able to step away from that. But that was like when I was 30, realizing, listen, that's baggage that's coming from your past. That's baggage that's coming from people who didn't want to face the truth. And so it was
So they used
huge to be able to reclaim my sanity.
it sounds like they used it as a scapegoat too. It was the excuse they used. Oh, you're crazy, not let's believe her for what she was going through.
Right. Even to the point where they were saying, well, she's demon possessed, that she's even saying something like that happened.
Oh my goodness.
And so then it went spiritual,
Mm.
So it just played with my mind and my heart and my soul. And I'm begging to God, listen, if this is what it is. So that was a tough one for me.
That's a
Um,
thick one. Boy. Well, I have another one.
Go for it.
Well, kind of, I wrote down, it stole my intelligence and my problem solving ability, and it
Mhm.
replaced it with trauma and blocking of being able to think just properly. So it kind of goes down the same line of it did affect my brain. So sexual abuse does steal some of our functioning. I remember learning a fact as an adult that some of our problem solving ended at where the sexual abuse began. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got stunted from way back when of trying to figure things out. And until you get healing, you could be stuck at that age. Am I saying it wrong? Am I on the same? Does it sound right?
I know they talk about emotionally, you could be stuck in there,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
do know that trauma still will cause issues with being able to have cognitive thinking and
Yeah.
being able to
Yeah.
process things that come your
Being
way.
able to do like the math problems and all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Oh yeah, I did horrible in school.
Yeah. And that's what I
because my
feel like,
mind wasn't on school.
right. Yeah.
My mind was on the night before and praying that it wasn't going to happen the next night.
right.
And then when I was 4 or 5 nights without it happening, you would think I should be doing better. I should be thinking more clearly. No, because now the suspense was getting worse.
Yeah. It's getting thicker and
And now I'm sick to my stomach, right?
yeah. Because you're on the edge of your seat just wondering when's it gonna pounce again?
Yes.
Because you're expecting it.
Yeah.
Not because you want it, but it's expected because for those of us that have had it a repetitive thing, that's what you're doing. You're wondering when it's going to hit again. When is that evil going to come back? You know, when's the monster going to show back up?
And the not knowing is tough.
It is. It's a traumatic fear. I don't know the right word for that kind of fear, but yeah, the suspensefulness is a good word for it. It's a terrorizing kind of fear that you're functioning in, and you're still trying to function and do schoolwork and be at home and try to not act like something's wrong. Or if you're a teenager trying to be, you know, in a relationship or be with friends without spitting out what's going on, you know, behind closed doors. It's like you're trying to live two worlds without betraying the other one, you know. Now I'm going on a whole different tangent, but anyway. But intelligence or problem solving, it'll steal that. And then I threw in there on top of that, it stole play. It stole the ability to play, and it stole creativity. And I even see that in my life today, like that I don't bring enough play in. I feel so free when I play. You know, like just last week building the snow dragon, you know, or playing with the grandkids. It's like, why am I not building this in more in my life? Like, it stole that in my childhood because you didn't feel free to do those things. I had a little bit of it, you know. I used to go out into the woods and try to remove plants and plant them in another spot, you know. So I had my little play believe house in the woods, but it didn't go a whole lot beyond that. And maybe hoarding toys or hoarding little boxes and making little new things out of it for a dollhouse, but not much creativity beyond that. I can only imagine what I would have been.
Well, I had peace and sleep kind of pushed together, and you had already mentioned that. So that's kind of covered in there because I lost so much sleep because of lack of peace and that terror of being in bed and wondering when it was going to come back. So,
oh yeah,
sleep, and it wasn't just sleep as a child, that continued on to my adult years where I would have night terrors, not realizing. But once I started growing closer to Christ and getting the counseling help that I was needing and working through that trauma, then the night terrors went away slowly but surely, which was wonderful.
Yeah, same
I
here.
never thought I would live without them. When you live so many years with them, it becomes not a big deal.
Yeah. And I figured it would be something my husband would have to live with, you know, me waking up and just yelling, or me waking up or whatever.
Joy for being touched. That got stolen from me. And yeah, I was raised in a house where we didn't hug a lot and touch a lot, that type of thing. So I'm sure that was all part of it. But even just getting a hug or things like that, it stole all the joy from that, because in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want you to touch me. I want to be loved by you as a friend, but I really don't want you to touch me.
Yeah. What's your motive?
You're going past the safe zone. And Christians, it seems in churches and everything, everybody greets each other with a hug or a holy kiss or whatever you want to call it. That's going beyond the elbow zone. Let's put it that way. And so it was just something it stole from me. And it was like, God, you're going to have to help me through this, because it even affected me and my children. And that was sad to see that John could just love on the kids and wrestle with the kids and do all of that. And I was very careful with my touch with my kids. I didn't want, it just wasn't something I grew up with heavy touching, but also there was such negative touch that happened to me.
Yeah.
I didn't want my children to experience it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you used the word joy. I wrote that down, but a different kind of joy. I just wrote down, it stole my joy for years till I met Jesus. Yours was joy in the touch. And for me, it was just joy, period. I didn't know I didn't have it until my mom pointed it out. And I didn't have it until I met Jesus. I actually chose to have a relationship with Christ. And my mom pointed out, you're smiling and a whole lot lately. I'm like, when was I not? And I didn't realize my joy was stolen until Jesus gave it back.
That was great that your mom noticed that.
Yeah, I would
Awesome.
have never known that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got another one.
Okay.
Stole the ease and enjoyment and freedom and intimacy with my spouse.
Yes.
Similar to your touch.
There was no ease. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it takes work. I remember it taking hours to just get myself mentally like, okay, this is a good thing. This is a good thing to be with your husband. This is a great thing. This is what God intended. But because of what was stolen as a child, I didn't see it as something enjoyable when I first got married. It was rough. It was rough to get to the enjoyment part and just to be able to relax. Just relax, Renee, relax, Renee. Nothing to do with my spouse,
Yeah.
So that's one I have here. And then that feeling safe goes with it. I feel like my safety was stolen. And so ever being able to feel safe in my home growing up or around the person who abused me, that was never there. And I found that even some safety around other people. And I think even the male gender, I would see them as more superior than myself. Maybe not feared them, but it just put a whole different spin on genders and safety in my world. So those are another thing.
Yep. Credibility. Because if you're doubted all that many years and you feel like when you become an adult, you feel like it doesn't matter what I say anyways. No one's going to believe and I'm not credible.
Yeah.
So that was a huge impact on me. And I still have to watch it to this day that I don't let those old voices come in or believe, look, I don't have credibility in it anyways.
Yeah, to have those voices.
Yeah.
Not good. So I even had, as I was thinking about this, I even thought of a friend who I had helped. She had been abused as a child and then became an adult, and a boyfriend forced her to go prostitute. And then a friend of hers forced her to prostitute. And as I was working with her, the one thing that stuck out, like I was thinking, well, what was stolen from her besides all these other things? There's a lot. But the one thing that she had one of the hardest times with, I remember hearing from her when we were talking, was her identity. She was always made to serve everyone else, give them what they wanted, that she didn't know who she was and what she wanted. And when we even talked about boundaries and you putting a boundary fence around the things you value, to even know what she valued was hard to determine, because it was always what everybody else valued, what everybody else wanted. So identity was a thing stolen from her, but I believe also from us too.
I know for me, I didn't want to be me. I would have rather have been anybody else.
True.
I wanted to be everybody else who was valued because I knew I wasn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always felt discarded and ugly, and too skinny and, all those things. I always saw myself as all the negative and not as the good. And that's why I think I said the very first thing is my value was stolen.
Yes.
But I know that my identity personally was stolen because that's something that I find I have to keep going back to the Bible for. God,
Yes.
what do you say I am? What do you say about me? Because today I struggle and I've forgotten, So it's not something that was ingrained as a kid where other people, they know who they are, They know they're the baseball player. They know this, they know something that they're good at. They know something that they're why, or their what, or their purpose. And that was something that was very hard, is to know my identity in Christ and even how I was created unique. It was so hard to figure out. I know now.
You know now.
Yeah.
You kind of brought it up in safety, but I put trusting others. It made it to the point where when I'm trying to convince myself, I know this happened, and people aren't believing, so question my credibility, it made me go, you know what? I have proof this time. I have this thing with me from what just happened. So that means my trusting in others, I can't trust others.
Yeah.
They're not looking out for my best interest.
Yeah.
I can't trust others. And that is tough because if you plan to get married, if you plan on having a relationship with God, trust is all part of that.
Yeah.
And it's a
Trust is
very
one of the
lonely
biggest.
life when you've cut off trusting in others. You can be friendly with people, all of that, but in the bottom, that when the line is drawn, I wasn't trusting in him.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. I thought of it, but I didn't write it down. But I ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Same with me with ones that you've mentioned, that's for sure. Privacy. I felt like I lost my privacy.
Oh, big time. Yes.
The healthy control and boundaries were demolished if there was any there in the first place. And so privacy just didn't exist.
Mm-mm. No. That was in the note I gave my mom. Those were the things that were the fearful things. It was the lack of privacy, the inability to, or the fear of when I was taking showers, the fear of when I would change. That all equates to that privacy thing. And then even when we had a foster child coming into our home, that was one of the things, knowing that he was abused and what he was dealing with, it was privacy stuff. Don't come in when I'm going to the bathroom. Don't come in when I'm in the, when I'm taking a bath. Don't, I have to have the door locked. So privacy is a huge thing that is stolen from those of us who have been abused, because we don't get, our body parts are taken from us.
They're not our own.
Exactly. So we can't keep that private. There's a reason why we call them our private, and we're not even allowed to protect and disclose.
My love for myself,
Mm.
I, at least from 13 on, I hated me. It was so clear to me that I hated me.
Mm.
And so there wasn't a love for me. And I'm not talking about self-love, you gotta, all of this, but there was an actual hate for myself. I hated that I existed because depression just hit in so hard and everything else. And so the love for me was stolen. The being happy that God made me.
Yeah.
When I heard preachers talk on that, I was like, you got to be kidding.
Mm.
I wish he wouldn't have. Those are the thoughts I had because the sexual abuse stole that.
Makes sense.
My voice, I felt like I just didn't have a voice. My smile, that hate rooted in really deep, and that only put my smile out for when I performed dance-wise.
Mm.
Otherwise, my smile it was stolen. Just like you talked about that joy.
Yeah.
as a kid where you could run around and just act like your grandkids do with no care in the world, right?
Yeah. You talk about that. And I brought this up actually to my mother. I'm like, Mom, you see this family picture? It's a family picture of all of us kids, you know. I've got siblings. I don't know if I've mentioned that before or not, but I've got siblings. And this is a picture when it was happening to me, you know. And I remember mentioning to my mom, look at the smile. That's not a genuine smile. I wasn't happy there, you know. It was almost, I knew it was a forced smile, but others making the comments like on Facebook, oh, look at such a happy family. And I'm like, you have no idea. That was such a fake smile for me. So I agree. Yeah, smiles were not, they were a luxury.
I think in the end, it took away my will to live. Though it happened, and then I started being suicidal by 13, and then again around 16. It just stole that will to live. And that's really going deep down into a rabbit hole. I'm so thankful that God reached in and convinced me to grab his hand for him to pull me right out. And that brings me to a verse that I read, which is Job 25, Job 25:26. And I don't even know if I could do it. I need a minute. Maybe you can do it, Renee. I can't do it.
I'll find it.
Job, I'll keep talking while you find Job chapter 25, verse. No, it's Job 19. I'm sorry. Job 19, 25 through 26. And Job had been going through losing his family, terribly sick, all the sores all over his body. Let me grab a tissue here. And all of that going on. So he was just suffering. And then he stops. And the atmosphere changed because he focused on God. And then he said, when all of a sudden he focused on God, not his troubles, not everything that happened to him, the great losses. I mean, for Pete's sakes, he lost all his children in one day. Boom. He lost his health. He lost his wealth. He lost everything, but he had his wife who wasn't being very helpful at the time, but he lost everything. And then all of a sudden his focus changed and he thought on God. And this is what he says.
But as for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he will stand upon the earth at last. And after my body has decayed, yet in my body I will see God.
And that to me is what restores all that we had just talked about. Amen. It restores all of that. We know as we've been walking this journey and healing that a lot of that has been restored.
I'm so glad.
But we can't get back our childhood. Our childhood is done and over. Renee, we're as old as we are right now, but God's going to redeem it. Right?
Yes.
And when we see him, our minds will be blown. Our flesh is going to see God and we will be whole.
Amen. But he's redeeming it now on this side of heaven. We are experiencing that redeeming.
Yes.
It will be perfect on the other side of heaven, which is a great gift.
It is a great promise.
It's the inheritance.
Wonderful. Yes. And oh my goodness, I can't wait to see him. But until that day, we have a message to give out that God can and will bring healing to those who seek him, who walk that journey and say, okay, I'll take a baby step.
Absolutely.
I'll take a baby step of faith. I've been hurt. I've been wounded.
These things have been stolen from me, Lord. What do I do about it?
And I need you as my redeemer
Yes.
to restore what has been taken.
Yeah. And then he not only restores what has been taken, but he takes what Satan intended for evil and he turns it to good in our life.
Yes.
I have a friend that continually says that to me, and I'm like, girl, I love that she keeps speaking that and repeating it because it's the truth of God. What Satan intended to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's what happened in our abuse. Those things were stolen. God will turn around and, like you're saying, Annette, restore it, and he will heal us in it and through it. And God will turn it around for something good.
Amen.
Amen. Right?
Well, I know our list could have been a lot longer, but I just wanted to hit on those things so that we could share that with others.
Absolutely.
Love you, Renee.
Love you too, girl.
Until next time.
And I'm glad you're here.
Oh, I'm glad you're here too.